Hey there, NBA fans. Number one Jamal Murray stan Tom Downey here, subbing in today for Hater Jimmy. He is out with a case of load management. And speaking of kind of Jamal Murray, we're going to kick off today's show with the Los Angeles Clippers. Are they in trouble? Because they blew that 3-1 lead against the Denver Nuggets in, frankly, it was embarrassing fashion. I don't really know what other word to use there. They went all in on that core of Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and it is important to make note. I'm not promising it's going to happen, but we have to acknowledge this possibility. Kawhi and PG can both leave after next season. That is a real possibility the Clippers are at least faced with. Now, in theory, they'll both want to re-sign, but what if the Clippers collapse again next playoff run? Well, do they want to come back? And part of the reason why I think there should be some concern here is the way the Clippers fell apart. They probably should have won Game 5. They probably should have won Game 6. And then Game 7 comes around, and I guess the moment was just too big for the Clippers' two stars because Kawhi and Paul George, playoff P, more like playoff poop, they were terrible. Like 0 combined points in the fourth quarter. They combined for 24 total. They were just awful all around. They couldn't buy a shot. And what worries me the most for this Clippers team is that this is what they have. They don't really have other options. They're already all in. Their draft picks are borderline non-existent. They got the 2021 first. They have pick swaps with OKC in 2023 and 2025, but I mean, are those picks even going to be good? If the Thunder are bad, they're just going to swap. They're going to keep it. So it's not in good shape for LA. They don't have back-to-back firsts till 2027. I didn't include second-round picks because, well, I mean, who actually cares at that point? I think there should be some concern around this Clippers team. Now, I'm not fully panicking yet, but there had better be some urgency next year because if the Clippers don't win the title or at least make the NBA Finals, are they going to want to stick around? So I'm going to make this particular question the pinned comment on today's video. What is the panic level right now for the Clippers? Rate this for me on a scale of 1 to 10. Let's move now to Giannis, where, hey, we're going to check in constantly on one of the top NBA players. He has met with Bucks ownership, and this next part is important, and I think both for Giannis, for me, and the entire NBA. The Bucks told him they would be willing to spend into the luxury tax. And the two sides discussed possible roster moves and additions and changes, and Coach Bud is set to return as the head coach for the Bucks next year. Milwaukee kind of in a more obvious spot of concern than the Clippers are. They're not a big-time market team, and they've struggled in the postseason with Giannis. This year they get bounced in kind of embarrassing fashion, the conference semifinals against the Heat. They lost to the Raptors last year in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then a bunch of first-round exits against the Celtics, the Raptors, and the Bulls when Giannis has been part of this team. He's clearly one of the best players in the NBA, and there's a reason that other NBA teams around the association, the Heat, the Warriors, etc., are all like, oh man, can we find a way to get Giannis? Now, I think that Giannis wants to give the Bucks every chance that they have. But this is a pivotal offseason for this organization. We will discuss one potential move they could make around Chris Paul here in just a second. But they need Giannis. If the Bucks don't have Giannis, this team is going to go right back to being, oh, well, who actually cares about Milwaukee? The Bucks think they're going to be able to re-sign him. I'm not convinced on that one. So what do you guys think? Get your votes in. Type Y for yes or type N for no. Now, I know you Warriors fans out there are typing in your N for no's because you're convinced you're going to get them. I know some Mavs fans out there who feel the same way. Reminder, folks, NBA masks are still available over at Fanatics. So head over to chatsports.com/NBA masks. They've got individual ones. They've got 3-packs. They've got 4-packs. Whole bunch of options, and we're still going to need to be wearing them for at least a couple another months, I think. So you might as well get some more. Chatsports.com/NBA mask. I will put that link in the comments, and I will put it in the description. So all you guys got to do is click shop, figure out your favorite team, and buy yours today. All right, as promised, Chris Paul and the Bucks. This one's been floated out there several times by a variety of reports. Sports Illustrated did it. But The Athletic says the Bucks probably aren't going to be interested, and there's a very fine line to balance here. Chris Paul was clearly better this year. It was a resurgent season for the aging point guard, and he played really well in the postseason as well, nearly helped the Thunder stun the Houston Rockets in the postseason. The problem for Milwaukee is the money involved. If Chris Paul was cheap, yeah, it's a no-brainer, but that's not how things work in the NBA. Paul is going to be expensive at a really concerning level, even though he played better this season. 41+ million this upcoming year, then 44.2. Then he finally becomes a free agent. That's a lot to take on. Now the Bucks can make it work, but as I'll show you with my trade idea here, is it actually their best path? The Thunder would get Eric Bledsoe, George Hill, Ersan Ilyasova, one of the Lopez brothers, and Dante DiVincenzo. That's a lot to give up, and that's just how the money works, because they're not going to move on from Middleton. You're probably going to want to keep Brooks Lopez as the better of the two, guys. They're the big men. That's concerning me. That's a lot to give up for Chris Paul, because now you still got to fill in the rest of your roster. Now, Bledsoe wasn't very good this past year. DiVincenzo's the best asset. That's a significant haul to give up if you are the Milwaukee Bucks. I think there will be some interest there, but the money makes things difficult. So I want you guys to predict as we get closer and closer to what should be a fun NBA offseason. Should the Bucks trade for CP3? Type 1 for yes or type 0 for no. Let's go to a different potential trade destination for Chris Paul, the New York Knicks. The reports are the Knicks are exploring a CP3 trade. One of the New York Knicks sites out there, Knicks Film Study, reports that there are two names mentioned as possible trade chips in the internal discussions right now for the Knicks. That is Julius Randle and Kevin Knox. Now, I do want to make an important note. Chris Paul's old agent, Leon Rose, well, he's the current Knicks president. Now, including Randle and Knox is intriguing to me. Randle makes a lot of sense, especially from a money perspective. You got to balance these salaries to make this deal work, and Randle certainly fits that. Kevin Knox, meanwhile, former earlier first-round pick, has not been great, but that's the type of gamble you could take if the Thunder choose to enter a rebuilding stage. So, from a money perspective, this one works out. Here's what I have to offer. All works in the NBA trade machine. Randle, Kevin Knox, and I threw in Taj Gibson as salary filler. Kevin Knox is the main asset there. Maybe you could work in a draft pick, but I don't think the Knicks really want to do that. And I think for Chris Paul, by the way, in terms of where he wants to go next, I don't know if he wants to go to a rebuilding organization, which is where the Knicks are currently at. So again, head on down to the comment section for me, folks, and predict, where will Chris Paul play next year? He's got some potential options. I'm sure the Thunder will be willing to work with him on a preferred destination, but I'm not sure yet. So get your votes in the comments section. Brief little news item here I want to mention. The NBA draft, the date, I think for good now, is locked in. It's going to be November 18th, over a full month later than what the NBA had originally announced. Part of the rationale here is they are planning for a combine of some sorts to occur to allow teams to get a better look at these young draft prospects. As a reminder, in case you didn't already know, we will be live during the NBA draft, and we will have the picks in before ESPN does. Myself, Homer Harrison, and Hater Jimmy will all be breaking it down. So if you haven't already, hit that big red button and subscribe today. I want to wrap things up with Blake Griffin. Another report from The Athletic is that the Pistons are unlikely to trade him, not because they want to move him or don't want to move him, but because there's just not going to be much interest in the aging player with a hefty contract coming off an injury. And the report also states that Griffin, who, look, even when he was out there, wasn't the same guy we're accustomed to seeing, could be traded at a later date if Griffin is able to return to the Pistons and rehab his value and net the Pistons some type of positive asset. Detroit is, how do I put this delicately, not in good shape right now with the way their roster and their books are all set up. And Griffin's contract, it's not appealing to other NBA teams, especially with a potential salary cap dip upcoming. 36.6 this upcoming season, and then almost 39 in the 2021-2022 season. That's a player option, but there's no way Griffin's turning down that one. He is on the wrong side of 30. He still has some, I would actually say plenty of immense talent, but the timing might not be right for Blake Griffin. So I think Detroit keeps him through this offseason, but maybe at the NBA trade deadline, whatever that looks like this upcoming year, you see Griffin's name floated out there in potential trade rumors.